Few regimes in modern history caused as much destruction as Nazi Germany. The men who led the Third Reich controlled armies, planned invasions, and were responsible for crimes that changed the course of history forever. But when the regime collapsed, their stories ended in very different ways. Some died in underground bunkers, others were hunted across continents for decades. A few faced justice in court, while some disappeared without a trace. In this documentary, you'll discover how every major Nazi leader met their final fate, and why some of these endings remain among history's greatest mysteries. Hans Frank served as Governor General of occupied Poland, where millions of civilians lived under brutal Nazi rule. His administration oversaw mass executions, forced labor, and the persecution of Polish Jews on an enormous scale. After the war, Frank admitted political responsibility for many of these crimes and was sentenced to death at the Nuremberg trials. Julius Streicher never commanded armies or concentration camps, yet his influence was immense. Through his newspaper Der Stürmer, he spent years spreading extreme anti-Semitic propaganda that helped normalize hatred and violence against Jews. At the Nuremberg trials, his words, not military commands, were judged as crimes against humanity, making him one of the few propagandists ever sentenced to death for incitement. Adolf Hitler was the dictator of Nazi Germany and the driving force behind World War II and the Holocaust. As Soviet forces closed in on Berlin, he chose suicide inside the Führer bunker rather than surrender. His death marked the symbolic end of the Third Reich. Joseph Goebbels served as Hitler's minister of propaganda. Through radio, newspapers, and film, he helped spread Nazi ideology across Germany. Even after Hitler's death, Goebbels refused to surrender and chose to end his own life. Klaus von Stauffenberg became the face of the German resistance after carrying the bomb used in the failed assassination attempt against Adolf Hitler on July 20, 1944. Believing that removing Hitler was Germany's last chance to end the war, he risked everything. When the plot failed, Stauffenberg was executed only hours later, becoming one of the most recognized symbols of resistance against the Nazi regime. Karl Dönitz succeeded Adolf Hitler as the last head of state of Nazi Germany. His government lasted only 23 days before Germany's unconditional surrender brought the Third Reich to its final end. Unlike many other senior Nazi leaders, Dönitz survived the war, served 10 years in prison, and lived until 1980. Joachim von Ribbentrop, Hitler's foreign minister, played a central role in Nazi Germany's diplomatic strategy and helped pave the way for the outbreak of World War II. At the Nuremberg trials, he became the first leading Nazi official to be executed, symbolizing the beginning of post-war justice for the regime's highest-ranking figures. Hermann Göring was once one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany and commander of the Luftwaffe. Convicted during the Nuremberg trials, he avoided execution by taking cyanide only hours before his scheduled hanging. Rudolf Höss was the commandant of Auschwitz. the largest and deadliest Nazi extermination camp. Under his command, more than 1 million people were murdered, most of them Jews. After the war, he was captured, testified in detail about the camp's operations, and was executed at Auschwitz itself, only a short distance from the crematoria where so many of his victims had died. Otto Skorzeny became famous for daring special operations, including the rescue of Benito Mussolini in 1943. Nicknamed Hitler's favorite commando, he avoided long-term imprisonment after the war, rebuilt his life in Spain, and remained one of the most recognizable former SS officers until his death in 1975. Reinhard Heydrich had one of the most remarkable post-war careers of any former German intelligence officer. After surrendering to the United States, he provided extensive intelligence on the Soviet Union, and later became the founding president of West Germany's Federal Intelligence Service, the BND. His story illustrates how the emerging Cold War reshaped political priorities after 1945. Adolf Eichmann organized the deportation of millions of Jews to ghettos and extermination camps. After escaping to Argentina, he lived under a false identity for years, before being captured by Israeli agents and brought to justice. Josef Mengele became infamous for conducting cruel and unethical medical experiments on prisoners at Auschwitz. Despite an international manhunt, he avoided capture and died in Brazil decades later without ever standing trial. Erich Priebke was an SS officer involved in the Ardeatine Caves massacre near Rome, where 335 civilians were executed in 1944. After the war, he escaped to Argentina and lived there openly for decades. It was only after journalists exposed his identity that he was extradited to Italy, convicted, and spent the final years of his life under house arrest. Heinrich Himmler commanded the SS and oversaw the concentration and extermination camp system. After Germany's defeat, he was captured by British forces but took his own life using a concealed cyanide capsule before he could be interrogated. Rudolf Hess was one of Adolf Hitler's earliest and most loyal followers. In 1941, he made a mysterious solo flight to Scotland in an unsuccessful attempt to negotiate peace with Britain. He spent the rest of his life in prison, and as the only inmate of Spandau prison, his death in 1987 was officially ruled a suicide, though it remains the subject of debate to this day.